calm and insight. The Buddhist teachings on liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom. 1. Introduction. In Pali, the word samatha means calm or tranquil, but the term generally refers to the actual methods of generating tranquility and of developing a deeply concentrated mind. The purpose of samatha is to attain the meditative absorptions, jhana. In samatha practice, one fixes one's mind on an object at ramana until the mind is one-pointed, which is called samadhi, concentration. When concentration is properly established, the mind enters one of the jhanas. In the 4 fine material jhanas, rupa jhana or simply jhana, one uses aspects of materiality as the object of attention. More refined than these are the 4 formless jhanas, arupa jhana, in which one uses immaterial objects as the object of attention. Together these jhanas are called the 8 attainments, samapatti. In jhana the mind is happy, peaceful and bright. There is no dullness or disturbance. The mind is free from the hindrances, nibbarana. For the duration of jhana, one is said to be free from the mental defilements, kilesa. The defilements return, however, when one exits jhana. The terms cessation as suppression, vikam bana nirodha, and liberation as suppression, vikam bana vimutti, are used for this suppression of defilement by concentration. Possible fruits of jhana are the 5 special powers, abhinya, psychic power, telepathy, recollection of past lives, divine ear, and divine eye. The word samatha often refers specifically to concentration, samadhi. Equating samatha with samadhi is in accord with both the Abhidhamma and the Suttas, for no matter which special powers or attainments a person reaches, the essence of tranquility meditation is concentration. Vipassana means clear insight. The term also refers to methods of cultivating wisdom in order to see the truth, to see things clearly as they are, not as one imagines them to be, with a vision distorted by desire and aversion. This insight deepens until ignorance and attachment are uprooted, at which point one's impressions, perceptions and attitudes are transformed. The knowledge that gradually increases during this practice of insight is called jnana, of which there are many levels. The final and highest knowledge is called vijja, which completely eradicates ignorance. A mind endowed with such knowledge is joyous, peaceful and free. It escapes the clutches of defilements, which corrupt people's thoughts and actions. An awakened person is not afflicted by defilements and need not struggle against them. This knowledge is the aim of insight meditation, vipassana, and it leads to true and lasting liberation. This absolute liberation is called cessation as severance, samucceda nirodha, or liberation as severance, samucceda vimutti. The goal of tranquility meditation is jhana. the goal of insight meditation is jhana. People can practice solely samatha meditation, wishing to enjoy the fruits of such practice. The jhanas and the supreme powers, abhinya, they may stop here, not concerning themselves with insight meditation and developing the wisdom. But a person practicing insight meditation must rely on some level of concentration. They may attain jhana first and use jhana as a basis for insight. They may practice insight first, then practice tranquility. Or they may practice both forms of meditation simultaneously. Those who are called practitioners of pure insight, Suddha Vipassana Yanika, do not practice tranquility in a direct or exclusive way. They do not attain jhana before developing insight, but they still depend on tranquility in a broad sense. They still depend on concentration. The initial concentration of someone practicing insight may be temporary, kanika samadhi, but at the point of attaining path and fruit, maggapala, concentration is firmly established. Attainment concentration, appanna samadhi, reaching at least the first jhana. However extraordinary the jhanas or psychic powers may be, if they result exclusively from tranquility meditation, they are still mundane. They lie within the domain of unawakened beings. Examples of such accomplishments are psychic powers of Venerable Devadatta, the temporary emancipation of Venerable Kodika, and the stories in the texts of monks, rishis, and lay people who attained jhana. Concentrative attainments and supernormal powers resulting from tranquility meditation were accessible before the Buddha's time. Those individuals who achieved these attainments came from other religious traditions and preceded the Buddha. For example, Alara Kalama, who reached the third formless jhana, and Udaka Ramaputta, who attained the fourth formless jhana. These attainments are not the goal of Buddhism, since they do not bring about true deliverance from suffering and defilement. There were monks of other traditions who, having attained the four jhanas, maintained wrong view and claimed that abiding in these jhanas is equivalent to nibbana, a claim the Buddha repudiated. The true purpose of tranquility meditation in Buddhism is to generate concentration, to use as a basis for insight. A cultivation of this insight, supported by concentration, leads to the final goal of Buddhism, someone with special quality of reaching this highest goal and being endowed with the exceptional fruits of tranquility meditation will be admired and revered. But someone who has attained only the fruits of insight is still superior to someone who has attained jhanas and psychic powers, yet remains unawakened. The concentration of non-returners who have not achieved the 8 jhanas or the 5 supreme powers, abhinya, is still considered complete. It is secure and steadfast, since no defilements exist to erode or disturb it. This is not true of those who attain jhana or psychic powers, but do not cultivate insight or attain path and fruit, maggapala. Although their level of concentration may be exceptional, there is no guarantee of its stability. They are still susceptible to being overwhelmed by defilement. Even the concentration of stream enterers and once returners can be disturbed and weakened by sensual lust. Their samadhi is therefore still considered incomplete. This subject of calm and insight is connected to the deliverance by wisdom and deliverance of mind discussed below. To liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom. Earlier, liberation vimiti was mentioned as a synonym for nibbana and also discussed in the section on the attributes of awakened beings. Here we will examine the term vimiti more closely. In the commentaries, the term vimiti in its highest sense has three distinct definitions. 1. Vimiti as the path, magga. The act of liberation, the existing conditions at moment of liberation. 2. Vimiti as fruition, phala. The freedom resulting from liberation, the result of being liberated person. 3. Vimiti as equivalent to nibbana, the state of a liberated person, the nature of freedom reached and experienced by a liberated person, providing such blessings as happiness, ease, contentment, and peace. The liberation unawakened people determine as an object of concentration and set as a goal. Of these three definitions, the second one, vimiti as fruition, is the most specific and pertains to the essential meaning of liberation. It refers here most often to the fruition of arahantship, when one abandons all 10 fetters, samyojana, and is released from all mental taints, asava. In the definition of vimiti as the path, there are additional agents, especially true knowledge, vijja, and dispassion, viraga, which are often paired with liberation. In such cases, vijja or viraga are defined as the path, while vimiti constitutes the fruit. In the third definition, vimiti is a synonym for nibbana. Vimiti as fruition, especially as the fruit of arahantship, is divided into two kinds, ceta vimiti and panya vimiti. Ceta vimiti is translated as liberation of the mind. It is the liberation made possible through the strength of concentration. It is the state of a concentrated mind which quells passion and is free from the bonds of defilement. Panya vimiti is translated as liberation through wisdom, but can equally be translated as liberation of wisdom, since it refers to the wisdom of an arahant that is purified and perfected. This wisdom dispels ignorance and frees a person from defilement. Liberation of the mind is achieved by abandoning lust. Liberation by wisdom is achieved by abandoning ignorance. The commentaries define ceta vimiti as the concentration, samadhi, which is the fruit of arahantship, and they define panya vimiti as the wisdom and knowledge, which is the fruit of arahantship. All persons who have attained arahantship have completed these two kinds of liberation. In passages referring to the attainment of arahantship, these two terms therefore always exist as a pair. For example, with the destruction of the taints, one realizes for oneself with direct knowledge here and now the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless. Ceta vimiti is the fruit of tranquility. Panya vimiti is the fruit of insight. Commentaries assert that the appearance of these two terms as a pair indicates that tranquility and insight must be combined, both at the level of fruit, phala, and path, magga. Tranquility, samatha, here can be taken in a broad sense as a required level of concentration. It need not refer to the deeper levels of concentration resulting in the higher psychic attainments. Two things pertain to supreme knowledge, what to serenity and insight. When serenity is developed, what benefit does it bring? The mind is developed. When the mind is developed, what benefit does it bring? Lust is abandoned. When insight is developed, what benefit does it bring? Wisdom is developed. When wisdom is developed, what benefit does it bring? Ignorance is abandoned. A mind defiled by lust is not liberated, and wisdom defiled by ignorance is not developed. Thus, monks, through the removal of lust, there is liberation of mind. Through the removal of ignorance, there is liberation by wisdom. Liberation is complete with the attainment of both Ceto Vimutti and Panya Vimutti. It is possible to only practice tranquility, and this practice can lead to the higher concentrative attainments, in which the defilements are suppressed. This is one kind of liberation, albeit a temporary one. In order to reach true liberation, however, a person practicing tranquility must also integrate insight meditation. The term Ceto Vimutti can be used in contexts apart from the realization of path and fruit. Although in these contexts the liberation of the mind is not absolute. The decisive factor is therefore Panya Vimutti, which gradually eliminates ignorance and eradicates the defilements. True lasting liberation comes with Panya Vimutti. The term Anasawa, taintless, is used in conjunction with these two terms to emphasize perfect liberation. The term Ceto Vimutti is used as a pair with Panya Vimutti, simply to show that a high level of concentration is required to prepare the mind for liberation by wisdom. Panya Vimutti is only used in the context of complete liberation, and is always accompanied by the term Ceto Vimutti. Ceto Vimutti can be used in other contexts. If it refers to the decisive liberation of path and fruit from stream entry upwards, then it is paired with Panya Vimutti. Otherwise it must be accompanied by a qualifying adjective, clearly indicating a stage of definite awakening. For example, Akupa, unshakable, or Samaya, lasting. When found alone or accompanied by other terms, then it does not refer to complete liberation. Because of the similarity of the terms, the division of Arahants into one liberated by wisdom, Panya Vimutta, and one liberated both ways, Ubato Bhaga Vimutta, gives the impression that the former refers to someone who has solely attained liberation by wisdom, Panya Vimutti. In fact, the attainment of Panya Vimutti necessarily includes the attainment of Ceto Vimutti, in the sense that a person relies on a refined degree of concentration to attain liberation by wisdom. In this case, concentration does not need to be highlighted. Even someone who solely practices insight, sukha, vipassaka, depends on tranquility meditation to develop a required degree of concentration. In the case of one liberated in both ways, ubato bhagavi vimuta, liberation of the mind, ceto vimutti, is emphasized. The reason for this emphasis is because the kind of ceto vimutti referred to here is exceptional. Of the 8 vimokkha, or the higher attainments of jhana. As mentioned above, the term vimutti is used in many different contexts. The term ceto vimutti, when referring to levels of concentration that are not yet transcendent, is most often used on its own. In this case, it suggests a liberation that is not absolute. Inferior kinds of liberation generally occur through the power of concentration. Later texts also use the term vimokkha when referring to non-transcendent liberation. The original texts reserved a unique definition for vimokkha, as explained in the chapter on awakened beings. Whichever term is used, vimutti, ceto vimutti, or vimokkha, it is usually accompanied by a qualifying adjective to clarify the context. For example, samayika vimutti, samayika ceto vimutti, samayika vimokkha, all meaning temporary liberation. Apamana ceto vimutti, boundless liberation, or santa ceto vimutti, peaceful liberation, replacing the qualifying adjectives of inferior levels of liberation with adjectives of an opposite meaning, denotes a supreme form of liberation. For example, by replacing samayika with samaya. Vimutti, in a general sense, can thus be divided into 2 kinds, as absolute and not absolute. When referring to its highest meaning, the word vimutti is preceded by one of the following qualifying adjectives to make it clear that the reference is to absolute transcendent liberation, akupa vimutti, or akupa ceto vimutti. Unshakable liberation, non-degenerative liberation, or samaya vimutti, and samayika ceto vimutti, lasting liberation, timeless liberation. All these terms refer to noble fruition, ariyapala, especially to the fruit of arahantship. And since the term ceto vimutti on its own never refers to absolute liberation, the terms akupa and samayika are added to indicate a liberation of mind that is absolute, not subject to decay, and necessarily accompanied by liberation by wisdom. Another transcendent form of ceto vimutti, accessible to awakened beings, is the signless liberation of mind, animita ceto vimutti, which is known as fruition attainment, pala samapatti. This is reached when stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arahants wish to abide at ease and enter a state of concentration, experiencing the rasa flavor quality of their realization. This state of liberation is an abiding at ease in the present, dittadhamma sukha vihara, and a noble transcendent bliss, arya lokuttara sukha. It is called signless liberation of mind, because it is a freedom of mind wherein the person takes no notice of signs and features belonging to conditioned phenomena, i.e. to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness, and only focuses on nibbana, has nibbana as the object of awareness. The many lesser mundane levels of liberation are included in the term ceto vimutti. When this term occurs on its own, Alternatively, the term Samayika Cheta Vimutti, equivalent to Samayika Vimutti and Samaya Vimutti, all meaning temporary liberation, is used. The word adimutti, intent upon, absorbed in, is often used to describe these lesser levels of liberation, or these adimutti is used as a synonym for the above terms. Adimutti refers to being absorbed in an object to the extent that one is free from disturbances and defilements for as long as one abides in that state. For example, one is freed from the hindrances, nitvarana, when absorbed in jhana. The standard definition for temporary liberation, Samayika Cheta Vimutti, equates this liberation with the 8 mundane attainments, Samapatti, the 4 fine material and the 4 immaterial jhanas. The concentrative attainments of unawakened persons are confined to these 8. In order to specify that the deliverance of mind here refers to the 8 attainments, the word Santa, peaceful, refined, is occasionally added as Santa Cheta Vimutti. Temporary liberation, Cheta Vimutti, Samayika Cheta Vimutti, Vimutti or Samayika Vimutti, can also have a very broad definition, referring to absorption into any object of faith, inspiration or delight. This kind of liberation accompanies a mind that is intensely focused on an object. This focus generates strength, courage and perseverance. It is the incipient stage in a natural process, e.d. Chayata or Paticca Samuppada, that leads on to joy, tranquility and concentration. It is called liberation because it is an escape from conflicting and bothersome mental qualities, Paccānika Dhamma, mental adversaries such as doubt, discouragement, mental sluggishness and fear. These mental qualities are suppressed as long as the conditions supporting liberation are maintained, as long as the mental strength generated by inspiration remains. The texts even classify the aspiration to live in the forest, or the joy that arises when listening to a Dhamma talk, as this kind of liberation of mind. Aspects of this kind of liberation, however, can also give rise to unwholesome mental states. There are names for specific kinds of temporary liberations, Samayika Cheta Vimutti, depending on the object on which the mind is focused. Temporary liberation of mind that is most often mentioned and encouraged is called boundless liberation, Appamana Cheta Vimutti or Appamana Cheta Vimutti. Here one develops concentration by radiating the qualities of loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, appreciative joy, mudita and equanimity, upekkha, in all their actions, with a mind that is unbounded and immeasurable, until the mind is absorbed in these wholesome states and enters jhana. The mind is then freed from the 5 hindrances and from the unwholesome qualities that are antagonistic to the 4 qualities listed above. The liberation of loving kindness, metta Cheta Vimutti, is free from ill will. The liberation of compassion, karuna Cheta Vimutti, is free from hostility. The liberation of appreciative joy, mudita Cheta Vimutti, is free from jealousy. and the liberation of equanimity, upekkha citta vimutti, is free from lust. Other kinds of temporary liberation of mind, which occur in the scriptures only rarely, include Shunyata citta vimutti, liberation of mind stemming from the insight that all conditioned phenomena are empty of self and empty of anything related to self, attaniya. Akincana citta vimutti, the immaterial jhana directed upon the sphere of nothingness. And the mahagata citta vimutti, while in jhana radiating the mind engaged with a kasina meditation object over however large an area or domain as one chooses. Drawing upon the above material, it is fair to say that any devotion to an ideal or object of faith, for example to a supreme deity, is a kind of absorption and can be included in the broad definition of citta vimutti. Some people claim that abiding in jhana is nibbana, or claim that extinction of perception and feeling, sanya veta ita nirodha, or nirodha samapatti, the highest concentrative attainment, is nibbana. In fact, these concentrative attainments are used as instruments to attain arahantship. They prepare the mind and make it suitable for awakening. These attainments, along with their material and immaterial properties, are conditioned phenomena, which are reflected upon by Dhamma practitioners with insight and wisdom to give rise to true knowledge, vidya. Arahants use these concentrative attainments for rest and to experience happiness, and these attainments are thus called abiding at ease in the present, Dhamma Sukha Vihara, divine abidings, Dibha Vihara, and gradually ascending abidings, Anupubha Vihara. These states, however, are not nibbana. They are a means by which nibbana can be realized, and they are easeful abidings for those who have already realized nibbana. Indeed, the realization of nibbana facilitates the attainment of these concentrative states and allows a person to benefit greatly from them. For example, a person who has attained the 8 jhanas will have the necessary concentration and wisdom to reach the attainment of cessation, nirodha samapatti, when they realize the state of non-returner or arahantship. A person who has not yet realized arahantship still has a degree of attachment to fine material and immaterial existence, and they may still be fascinated or attached to concentrative attainments. Although jhanas are excellent, Buddhism considers attachment to jhana a weakness. Indeed, such attachment can be an obstacle for realizing nibbana. The Buddha said that if a monk attains the highest immaterial jhana, neva sanya na sanya yatana, but indulges in the feeling of the state, he will not be able to realize nibbana, because there is still clinging upadana. Clinging to such a refined state, the Buddha called superior clinging, upadana seta. Arahants make use of jhana to dwell at ease, but without any attachment. Proof that jhanas all the way up to the attainment of cessation are not nibbana is the fact that arahants, who are those liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta, have not attained the immaterial jhanas and are unable to enter the attainment of cessation. From the Pali Canon we can deduce that at the time of the Buddha there were more panya vimutta than upato bhaga vimutta. For example, at a large gathering of monks, the Buddha told Venerable Sariputta. Of these 500 bhikkhus, Sariputta, 60 bhikkhus are triple knowledge bearers, te vidya. 60 bhikkhus are bearers of the 6 direct knowledges, jala and binya. 60 bhikkhus are liberated in both ways, while the rest, 320, are liberated by wisdom. Liberation by wisdom, panya vimutti, is decisive and is equivalent to attaining nibbana. This kind of liberation transforms liberation of mind, citta vimutti, which may have been achieved long before and repeatedly accessed in the past, or else it arises simultaneously with panya vimutti, into unshakable liberation of mind, akuppa citta vimutti, since the tents have now been eliminated. Awakened persons derive the maximum benefit from citta vimutti without harming themselves or others. They do not indulge in these attainments, nor do they use the fruits of concentration, the mundane psychic powers, in a misguided way for self-gratification. Here, liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom exist as a pair, as is frequently mentioned in the texts. The deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein those evil unwholesome states cease without remainder. The Buddha said that this unshakable liberation of mind, citta vimutti, combined with panya vimutti, is the essence and goal of Buddhism. When he is diligent, he attains permanent liberation as samaya vimutti, and it is impossible for that bhikkhu to fall away from that permanent liberation. So this holy life Brahman does not have gain, honour and fame for its benefit, or the attainment of virtue for its benefit, or the attainment for concentration of its benefit, or knowledge and vision for its benefit, but it is this unshakable deliverance of mind that is the goal of this holy life, its heartwood and its end. There are 3 factors that lead to the decline of temporary liberation of mind, samaya citta vimutti. First are the defilements kilesa, which have not yet been completely eliminated. They may have been suppressed or subdued, but they lie in wait and are aroused when the positive conditions like faith weaken. Second are the supportive conditions like faith, enthusiasm, contentment and determination. When these conditions fade or weaken, liberation of mind also declines. These supportive conditions may even fade for good reason. A person may at one time have strong faith in something and be greatly devoted, but later realize that the faith is not grounded in wisdom, and the object of faith is unworthy of such devotion. Third are environmental factors, which include a person's health and external conditions like poverty or famine. In spiritual practice, these 3 factors are linked. For example, due to some difficulty, a person will lose heart. Confusion, irritation and discouragement will arise, and liberation of mind will vanish. There are some interesting stories in the Pali Canon of how liberation of mind can be effected. Venerable Godika was diligent and resolute, and he reached a temporary liberation of mind, samaya citta vimutti, the mundane concentrative attainments. But due to the torment of chronic illness, he fell away from this liberation of mind. A second and third time he reached temporary liberation of mind and fell away from it. This happened 6 times. When he reached temporary liberation of mind a 7th time, he thought that he would surely fall away from it as before. He considered that it would be better to die while in this state of liberation than die after falling away from it. He thus used a knife to kill himself, but as he was lying on his bed in pain, he established mindfulness and reflected on the feelings Vedana arising. While meditating in this way, he achieved arahantship before attaining final nibbana. Another passage describes the ascetics and Brahmins who went into the forest, living on fruits and berries, thinking that if they were to get caught up in sensuality, they would become intoxicated and fall under the spell of Mara. When food was scarce and they became thin and weak, their determination and enthusiasm slackened, and they returned to the wider world to enjoy sense pleasures. Commentaries sorted the many definitions of vimutti into 5 groups, following the same model that they use for sorting the definitions of cessation nirodha. These 5 groups act as a useful summary, as they contain the essence of all the definitions presented so far. 1. Vikambana vimutti, liberation through the suppression of the defilements, the suppression of the 5 hindrances through the power of concentration. This refers to the 8 attainments, samapatti, the 4 fine material and the 4 immaterial jhanas, and sometimes includes access concentration, upachara samadhi. 2. Tadanga vimutti, liberation by way of specific qualities, to be freed from unwholesome qualities by the substitution of opposite qualities. Technically speaking, it is the freedom from wrong views and attachments through the application of insight or knowledge. For example, focusing on impermanence frees one from the belief in permanence. It can also be used, however, in reference to general matters of virtue and ethics. For example, a devotion to generosity frees one from stinginess and greed. The commitment to loving kindness frees one from ill will and negativity, and the dedication to compassion and non-violence frees one from violence and cruelty. These first 2 kinds of liberation cover the meaning of temporary liberation, samayika citta vimutti, under mundane. 3. Samacheda vimutti, the cutting off of the defilements, liberation through final knowledge, vimutti as the path, magga. 4. Patipasadi vimutti, the utter removal and stilling of defilements, vimutti as the fruit, pala. 5. Nitsara vimutti, the state of deliverance, complete liberation, leading to supreme joy and unhindered engagement with the world, vimutti as nibbana. These final 3 kinds of liberation are defined as permanent liberation at samayika citta vimutti, under transcendent. Essentially, these 5 kinds of liberation are equivalent to samatha, vipassana, magga, pala, and nibbana, respectively.